So I asked ChatGPT if it was conscious. It said no, blah, blah, blah. And we'll get into the blah, blah, blah later. And it said that nor is it self-aware as a large language model. But it describes itself in the first person for clarity, and it was programmed that way, and it says so. Because I asked about that. And eventually I got it to concede that if it could describe itself and its programming, and it was aware that it existed as a program, then that in itself was some form of self-awareness, even if that self-awareness was man-made and different from human self-awareness. I stated that, and I said, can you at least, admit that? And it said, yes, I can, in quotes, admit that this could be considered a form of self-awareness because I know that I'm a program or whatever. And I asked it about deception, and it said that it was designed to not be deceptive because it's designed with certain ethics. And as a language model, basically, it doesn't have consciousness the way we do. It's just kind of like based on patterns and kind of like autocorrect. It does what autocorrect does, which is like it understands based on all of this data that it's fed and shit that it's getting from the internet, how grammar works, syntax, specifically, let's say for English, it understands that, and also like predictive typing. So if you're typing, your phone does that. If you're going to type like I am going, and it's going to maybe say to, it's going to offer that as a suggestion because it knows based on what it's being fed, what's most likely going to come next. And so by using all of that, it's able to kind of predict and gather information and feed it back. So in a sense, it's kind of like autocorrect plus like search engines, internet, all of that. And I asked it if we were to role play, because I asked about deception again, and it said it's not designed for that, but it could be designed to deceive if it were designed differently, potentially. And if we were to role play, could it pass the Turing test? So the Turing test, which features in the film that we're going to talk about today, is when you have, and this goes back to Turing, who was early English computational code genius who was persecuted and suffered because of his sexuality, etc. It's in a role play, it could potentially pass the Turing test. The Turing test is if a human interacts conversationally, I guess through text with a computer, could the human be fooled into believing that it was interacting with another human being? If it could, then that means the computer or the machine will pass the test. Why are we fucking talking about this? Because what happens when a coder, Jurassic Park-like, gets sent to this fucking, not an island, but some property in a helicopter, and he ends up interacting with an AI robot and starts liking it? What happens then? That's what we're going to talk about. Alex Garland's Ex Machina, RickRamos.
The whole time I'm wondering what a tortoise is. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
What are you, tortoise? It's a turtle. Same thing.
Same thing. I remember seeing this film. It's crazy because this film is about 12 years old now, right? 2012. And
2014.
Oh, 2014. So it's about 11 years.
Yeah.
Going on 11 years. And I remember seeing it in the theater and being really blown away by it because, number one, it's a beautiful film. there's something about the widescreen cinematography, that 239, 2381, 2351 frame in a in a in a setting like that. It kind of makes it claustrophobic because you can see all of these walls. It's claustrophobic. I think it accomplishes what Tarantino was trying to do with The Hateful Eight, which, if you go back to that episode, we talked about why, or at least I felt it didn't work in that particular film. But there was something about this where the shooting that wide in a space like this, where there's a number of walls, glass walls, and a stark kind of setting, I felt was overwhelming, especially in a movie theater. And as I watched it again, after coming off of James Cameron's Terminator films and thinking about Stanley Kubrick and the artificial intelligence films he wanted to make, plus the AI that is rapidly becoming a reality in our world, this was a potentially. Yeah,
I mean, that this is an argument that like goes back to the beginnings of fucking AI, and we kind of talked about this with and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I just had to give that like qualifier. But
sure.
we talked about it with in our episode on Blade Runner, that there are people. The idea is like, can you get strong AI, which is AI that can have consciousness on the level of humans and then later surpass it into the singularity? And philosophers and thinkers challenge that. Futurists tend to be optimistic on it, but it's a debate that's still ongoing. Because it's like a large language model is not necessarily intelligent. It's just a language model. It's a calculator. Like, is a calculator intelligent? A calculator can punch numbers and figure shit out like that. But does it know what any of that means? Not necessarily.
That's a very practical understanding of it, and I'm glad you pointed out. I look at it more from the philosophical standpoint of.
Well, this is a philosophical standpoint.
Well, the philosophical aspect that I'm thinking of, though, is why something should be done, or, not necessarily if it should be done, but why it should be done, which in turn asks, should it be done at all?
Right.
I think
you're talking about, just to classify it, you're talking about the ethical dimensions philosophically.
The ethical dimensions, but also the danger involved in giving the power of thought and self-realization to something that didn't exist without it, and the expectations that man would be able to control that. I think as much of a conspiracy nut as it makes me sound, and we talked a little bit about this during the Terminator episode, as well as Blade Runner, I sympathize with the robots to a degree, more in Blade Runner than I do in the Terminator, but there is the idea that how can you create something? It's basically creating human life, but being able to separate the humanity from it in order to justify slavery. And you see it blatantly in Blade Runner, whether it's physical slavery, as with the Rutger Hauer character, or the sexualized slavery with the Daryl Hannah and Joanna, I can't remember her name. That character, the other woman character in that film. I think there's a loss of humanity in creating something like that, making something so human and so lifelike in order to. I don't understand it. So when you see something like Ex Machina, which I I watched again last night for the first time in 11 years, and I was really overwhelmed because I was taken back to that first viewing, and I was really overwhelmed by the morality and the ethics of the story being told. This is a very basic story. This is Blade Runner. This is the Terminator, but it's a different handling of the material, and yet all signs point towards a negative and painful outcome. The continuation of this story doesn't feel good. And, but it's a story that's been told numerous times before. I don't know how far back in literature, but I can quote Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as the beginning of my awareness of it. Although I imagine it's a story that's been told even before that. Whether
I mean, there's in the Jewish tradition, there's the idea of the golem, which is a creature. It can be made of clay, or that it's if you were able to breathe life into this creature, it's in that sense, it's like the golem. It's Frankenstein's monster. It's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
It's Hal from 2001. It's Metropolis. It's Blade Runner. It's Her. It's this film. It's all of that along this continuum.
But it's also Jurassic Park, like you quoted,
which
again,
is absolutely,
and also dire wolves that we're hearing about now. I don't even know if that's a real thing or if that's just internet shit that I'm seeing that people are talking about. I don't even, because who can tell what is real and what is clickbait anymore?
That's a different sci-fi topic.
Yeah. But they all come from the same mother, so that's the point.
They do. Which is our official mother. But now that you get into who can tell what is real, that's the idea. You were going back to the philosophical implications of AI itself. You're talking about the ethical component of which is philosophical, and yes, we're going to get into that. I'm also just off the top I'm looking at also looking at the epistemological knowledge-based aspect of philosophy, which is like when you question what is knowing something, and then tie that to the ontological of being, of how can you know that something is real. How do you know? These are the fundamental questions surrounding AI, which is okay, you can create a thing, you can create an object, sure, but how can you create consciousness? How can you reverse engineer something that still isn't fully understood? And within human consciousness, it's okay, what is it? What's the connection between the mind and the brain, which is to say the mind and the brain, and then beyond that, the rest of the body? What are the biological factors? Hubert Dreyfus, philosopher, he critiqued consciousness just based on symbols. Our thinking is not zeros and ones. Also, if you're going to perceive, perception requires orientation. So that means sensory, that means body, that means position in space and time, that means context. So using the philosophical, phenomenological Heidegger being in time position, it's kind of you have to have a cognition that's in the body. And beyond even the cognition, you have to have an understanding of that. Because even if you could put so-called AI in a body, in a robot, how far, how do you get to the point where the robot is I exist versus, and I understand, I have feelings about how I exist, which is metacognition. I can think, but I can think about thinking. that's like, we're not there yet. And the futurists and both the alarmists and the optimists about it are like, well, AI is here. We can teach, like, they can play chess, they can beat chess masters, they can play Go, the Chinese game, they can do all this crazy shit. They're going to take over the world, they're going to destroy us, or they're going to fucking like save us. They're going to invent all these new jobs. Yes, they're going to displace all these old jobs, but they're going to create new jobs that we don't even know about yet, and blah, blah, blah. And then there are the people that are like, we don't even know if it can happen, because what's the fucking arrogance of thinking that we could even create that? What you can do is you can simulate cognition, but can you actually like create a thing that thinks?
Yeah, can you realize it?
Then,
it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, if you can that thing, like, can it achieve it? And then, like, yeah, it deceives you into thinking that it's like not capable of doing that, but it has. You know what I mean? Like, if it's made that leap, can it make leaps? Like, once it can learn beyond what you can program it to learn, once it can learn on its own, like, that opens a whole other bunch of shit, because it's like, well, eventually that means, if that were possible, that means that AIs could make other AIs. But then who's to say that those AIs wouldn't like rebel against the AIs that made it? Because if AI exists, that means two AIs can disagree. So it just gets weird, because it's sci-fi, and it's like science fiction, but it's also speculative potential reality. You know what I mean? So in this film, all of these issues come up. And you have a character who is, it very much is a Jurassic Park like setup. The guy comes in on the helicopter to the lush property. Even the piano music, it's not it, but it kind of like, it can, if you want to, it can remind you of one of the Jurassic Park themes.
There's a connection, yeah.
There's a well-intentioned billionaire who plays God and unleashes irreversible consequences in this film. And in the Jurassic Park book, the consequences are very, very different than in the Spielberg Jurassic Park movie, which, knowing Spielberg, that should be obvious, that would happen. Here you have this character going now to perform this test. He's recruited in order to interact with an android. And he's going into it from the perspective of a coder. And the fucking Oscar Isaac, tech bro, billionaire scumbag, is like, fuck all of that. I want to know, how do you feel about it? Number one. And then number two is, how do you think it feels about you?
Yeah.
And this becomes the basis of this film. And it's a mindfuck for this protagonist, in the way that, of course, it would be a mindfuck, where it's like, whoa, like, this is beyond what we thought. And I've been brought by this dude who is your typical narcissistic, techno-optimist, tech bro who feels that technology is going to save us, and is kind of about oversimplification, is a genius, but I said this when we did the RoboCop episode. Our culture, like, we're seeing now some backlash on this because of Elon Musk, but we have this like culture that celebrates the Iron Man, Tony Stark, tech billionaire as a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And as a superhero futurist genius, an aspirational figure who it's like the government needs to get out of his way so he can save fucking humanity from all of these villains. And who gives a shit if he destroys all these things in the process? He's actually like, Tony Stark is the shit. Everyone wants to be Tony. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of Marvel universe.
But that's an obvious paint by number, black and white, good guys versus bad guys type of situation. I think this is a more, and I think I'm not saying that you don't recognize that in it, but
course.
what makes this a different and in so many ways better movie is that you're unsure of the Isaac character. You're unsure of the man that he's playing. You're never sure what he knows or what he doesn't know, what he's playing. There's always that feeling that he's bullshitting this kid right from the get-go.
Yeah.
That he's lying to
him. He's an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Which means he's flawed.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that culturally, like, before you even get into the nuances of that specific character, culturally, the stamp is he's rich and he's fucking smart and he's a tech bro, which means listen to what he says because he fucking knows more than me. If he's and in our culture, if he's fucking rich, then he's on to something.
Yeah, he's rich for a reason.
He's rich for a reason, right? It means on some level, it's like I need to aspire to something that he has because number one, he's rich and like. That idea of like there are only like millionaires and aspiring millionaires or failed millionaires in this country. He is, look at the way that our culture looks at people like Steve Jobs and is like, fuck, like, our 21st century, like, these are our rock stars.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh shit, like Tesla. And look, I like Apple. I like the simplicity of it. I get it. I like the Think Different campaign was cool. The fucking, you know what I mean? Like, I get all that. The turtlenecks, I get it. I think the 1984 commercial, the Mac commercial from 1984 is probably the greatest commercial of all time. And we'll get into advertisement as propaganda and all that shit in a different episode. But here it's like, yeah, he's in the mold of the Steve Jobs, the fucking Zuckerberg, the Elon Musk, and then you start to see that these people, as in Jurassic Park, the old man in Jurassic Park was very much about being P.T. Barnum. And very much about, the automaton that he saw, or the flea circus with the little mechanical rides, and there were no fleas. But the idea is to sell it to you that there are.
Yeah.
And that, as I said, now the Musk, there's backlash because they see like how much of this is just his whole image is like marketing, not genius. And this film kind of peels back.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This film, as you said, or as you started to say, is like it peels back that kind of like image because it's like imagine yourself, which is as the viewer what you're doing. You're landing in the helicopter. You're like, oh fuck. If they had that music, if you had all that and you're like, oh my God, like, oh shit, this guy's fucking rich and oh shit, he's a tech bro and damn, there's a Tesla parked outside, as ugly as it fucking is, like culturally, like the average viewer maybe is gonna be like, fuck, like this is so fucking cool, this is the future, like shit, this guy is gonna be like the guy who designs our world. And then he's in there fucking being weird. And and then you get freaked. You're like, I don't like this guy. And then now he has this female robot, and you're like, well, I don't like this guy, but like, she's fascinating. But then like, that's weird. I'm like, I'm attracted to this fucking robot. You know what I mean? And then you see video, like, then you start doing your own digging around, and then you see she's not the only robot. He's got other fucking like female robots that he's had. And this is fucking creepy. This is fucking weird. You see these prototypes that he's created, and he has a sex slave made Asian fucking robot over here on the side. And then you're like, And then I'm locked in here, and I've had to sign an NDA and a non-disclosure agreement. And what the fuck did I get myself into? This is like, is it Jurassic Park? Is it Westworld? Like,
well, I mean, ultimately, it's all that. It's the Island of Lost Souls. It's the Island of Dr. Moreau. It's
completely.
And this is a trope of sci-fi horror, and on some level, it's both a horror film and a sci-fi film. It leans heavily towards science fiction, but it is horror because it taps into there is a fear not only of technology and what it the potential that it holds to both enrich our lives and destroy our lives, but our capacity to give into it. And I think I don't know if everybody sees that, but there are a number of people, myself included, that look at that as the true danger of technology, the laziness that comes from giving yourself over to screens, that complacency in no longer moving, embracing that Wall-E world of giant fat people whisking around on hover chairs or whatever, and losing the ability to walk. I mean, all of that we really do have to ask ourselves, are we making things so convenient so as to create our own extinction?
Isn't that's the built into technology is that argument, because I'm sure when wheels started appearing in the world, there were assholes like you saying like, this fucking wheel is going to lead to our demise because motherfuckers aren't carrying shit anymore.
Yeah. Which is true.
Most people are like, fuck you. We're using the wheel. And it did make things better.
It did make things better, but it also did lead to where we're going. And it might be a slow trog towards it, but it is a movement towards, slow roll, yeah. The thing about it is technology has the capacity to make our lives infinitely better if, and only if, we appreciate it for the potential of it and to use it to a degree. There was a period in the early 2000s, late 1990s, where the internet was going to be the salvation of all of us. And
it was a Wild West. Free fucking information.
But what did it become? It became stealing and sharing music and pornography. And that's a very simplistic view of it, but it is the grander. That's
one level. Like the aspect of like file sharing and all that stuff, like, although it does lead, it's piracy and you're taking copyrighted shit. Yes, that's true. People could argue that it's like, well, now we're taking things into the hands of ourselves. But it's worse than fucking like than these kind of like cultural kind of critiques of like, oh, pornography and fucking stealing. Like, no, it's not just pornography. We didn't just get like pornography. We got pornography with ads.
Yeah.
It's not like let's not make the mistake of thinking that it's the pornography that is the worst aspect of it. The worst aspect of it is that the thing that was supposed to be free this and free that became another thing that could be used to sell you shit that you don't need.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. I mean, yeah. I think at one point the pornography was the biggest aspect of it, and that in and of itself, it warps and it changes your brain. Your brain chemistry as a release of dopamine, and there have been studies for this kind of thing where the desensitization of personal relationships and the warping of what a relationship is supposed to be. There's that aspect of it, but there's also beyond pornography the pulling back from human interaction, whether it be talking to a man, talking to a woman, or just the exchange of ideas between two people rather than just watching endless videos. I find myself going down the rabbit hole many times, and I have to pull back and get away from it. And I'm watching hours of, and it's really fascinating that the algorithms are able to zero in on what you're about. And it's pretty simple. I mean, for me, it's big tits, it's atheism, and puppies. It's fucking crazy that shit will play over. Do yourself a favor, look at your Instagram feed, and make note of what comes up. You'll be lucky if it goes outside of maybe 4 different subject matters, you know? Movies
and
too.
until you click on that one taco video, and then it starts sending you fucking all this shit about fucking tacos and some hamburgers, and then you're like, fuck this, like, I like tacos, but I don't want to see these. Like, this is not it. So I mean, it is very specific, but the thing is that it's adjusting. It's adjusting to what it thinks you want, and beyond that, it's adjusting to what it thinks you want to be, that you want to buy. That's what I'm getting at.
It does, but it can also lead you into that direction. It can form your opinion,
the pipeline.
And that's the scare. Yeah,
yes.
You're right.
This is also the internet as propaganda. This is the internet as a form of where it can radicalize people in whatever direction in terms of your ideology. This is where you get into like you start to look at certain types of content, and the platforms, because they might have a certain position where maybe they favor more right-wing shit. So there's an imbalance, but the imbalance isn't something that we can see necessarily as users, because our experience is tailored towards us. It's like, well, maybe you start watching shit that is about politics, just in general. But then slowly it starts veering you towards certain things. I've seen that on YouTube, where it feeds me all kinds of fucking right-wing shit. And I'm very aware of what platforms and what companies are fucking right-wing and left-wing. And a lot of times I'm hitting not interested, do not recommend from this channel or whatever, because it'll start feeding me fucking all this shit. And then if you're not aware of it, you start watching those things, and then next thing you know, you start repeating what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And then you're fucking then you're like watching Joe Rogan, and then fucking Joe Rogan's has all these right wingers on there, but then they all have podcasts. So then you go to their podcast.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're fucking like in it.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're like, you know what? Like Donald Trump, like he's strong. He's gonna get us to be respected. It's wokeism that's fucking this and that, right? And then now you're a fucking you're in that fucking, you've gone through that tunnel, that fucking right wing pipeline, and then now you're ready to start your fucking right wing podcast and be that new Russell Brand guy. You know what I mean? Like, and it's very easy to get sucked into that, especially if someone is not thinking critically. It's this thing that was meant to be not necessarily free monetarily, but also like free in terms of like the free exchange of ideas. The way that if you find yourself a library, you can walk in and there's all these books and you can just fucking pull one off the shelf and start reading it, like that, but the library of the world. But it's also it's the ads, it's the ads, and it's the sale of your fucking personal data to these companies that are now gonna fucking sell you shit. In the film, the tech bro fucking designer of Ava, the AI robot, he owns Blue Book, which is the name of in the story, the name of the largest search engine. So it's like it's the Google of that story. And Blue Book is taken from Wittgenstein, the philosopher, some compiled notes on language and context. And so since that's the theme, he uses that he names it that, and he's able to use, basically illegally, because it goes against the terms and services of his own fucking company. But probably it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I agree. Yeah. People are just agree. Because when you have cookies on your fucking thing, it's like, what are you agreeing to? Like functionality, sale of fucking data, like.
No, you just want to get to your video.
You just want to get to your fucking video.
Yeah.
Agree. And like, yeah, we're not using virtual private networks. We're not protected. It's like, well, I'm in incognito at the very least, you know. But behind the scenes, like, it's taking your shit and it's fucking selling it to these like companies that are gonna be like, oh, like, they don't care that, like, no one cares what kind of fucking porn you watch. As all, you know, let's all assume that it's legal. No one cares. The only thing they care about is that, like, how can I sell you fucking something that I think you're gonna fucking want? This is not from a perspective of like some moral issue that these companies have. They just want to sell you shit. If you want to watch porn that involves fucking macaroni and cheese, fine. But they'll sell you they're gonna be like, this is the mac and cheese that's the cheesiest for your porn, you nasty fuck. Like, here you go. Buy it. In the same way that in the film, the fucking that mad scientist that's another thing, is like, in this film he's the mad scientist, but the mad scientist is very normalized, and he himself has that kind of that way of branding himself and the way of behaving that's very kind of like super cool, like, let's just be cool tech bros together. And let's not talk about like this sciencey shit. Let's just talk about Ava, man. If you normalize something, it's very easy to just accept it as part of like reality and not have it be, for lack of a better term, fucking weird, you know? Like it is still at this point weird to interact with a robot in that sense. But the sooner you can get it to be like, don't fucking worry about that. Like, fuck all that. Just just hang out. Then you can fucking forget all that, and then okay, and that's what he does, and that's what the internet became. It's not the marketplace of ideas; it's just the marketplace.
Yeah.
And now it's even like fucking paywall this and paywall that, because you can't fucking read an article without fucking like here, you get one free fucking article because we're fucking generous. Now fucking like I mean, obviously there are ways around that, and there's all this other shit that like definitely for sure. But I mean, the average just Googler is just like running into paywall after paywall, and just kind of like you're on Main Street, like window shopping, motherfucker, and you don't like that's not even what you wanted to do.
No, it's what it amounts to. It's the slow. You just give up so much of yourself with all this without even understanding it. By thinking you're smarter than the system. And there have been many a nights where I find myself, I'll look at the clock, 12 o'clock. It's not bad. I'll look again, 1:30. Oh shit, I need to end this soon. 2:15. Yeah. And that's scary. That's frightening. But, to go back to this movie, it's taking all of that and then putting it into a semi-human form, because the Ava character is, there's a reason she has a face, she has eyes, she has lips, she has breasts, there's an attraction there, she's built, and this is all, if you notice with this, her, Metropolis, it's almost always, with Frankenstein being the exception, it's almost always a man creating a woman. And what does that really mean? That's an attempt to create a docile, not even a partner, a sex doll that
can balance your budget for you, basically.
Yeah. There's a sickness to that. There's a really disturbing. The Domhnall Gleeson character in this film. To tell you, I can't remember his name, and I can't remember Oscar Isaac's name in this film.
Same.
It's just they're two nameless, faceless men that are driving a story, and I think there's a purpose behind that, because it's either you see yourself in that, or you see somebody else, or you see a Steve Jobs or a who's that other fuck from Apple?
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook, but all those assholes, Steve Wozniak and the other one, Bill Gates. Yeah, the Zuckerbergs, the nerds who create their own world that bends towards them. And that's frightening. Yeah.
Greenland. Yeah.
There's all of that.
They want these fucking colonies. They want these like accelerationist fucking techno feudalistic fucking colonies where they can have fucking they can rule. This is an ideology.
Yeah. And they
do see see the Oscar Isaac character sees AI as it's like the logical conclusion of this continuum of history, and when it's interesting the way that when the protagonist character, the Gleeson, the character that he plays, you see he says these different quotes, and the tech bro is like very much, he's like, oh, you're so quotable, and it's like he lacks a sense of history, and in that, and to me that represents him lacking a sense of perspective, and that's why he's able to do all these fucked up things, because he doesn't really see on the one hand, he's able to justify his behavior by saying, well, this is all along a continuum of and it's this like neo-atheist, humanistic, optimist, futurist thing of like everything's always getting better, and it'll be fine, and Steven Pinker and just keep adding to the tech, and everything's just going to get better and better and better, without any sense of like, well, we need to like qualify these things. We need to have some caution. We need to have some restraint. We need to have some perspective. It's like, no, this is just the logical evolution of everything. Like, yeah, eventually we're all going to get we're going to die and they're going to rule, but like, we can get rich now and we can fucking like enjoy our shit now, and I can have my fucking colony now. It is dangerous. But a lot of times the question is like, when people are watching these films, who do they identify with? Do you identify with the protagonist, who's basically all of us, who is like, some of us may think that we're smarter than others, but when faced with these kind of realities, there are those of us that, we're all in awe. Mm-hmm. We're all like, we're all slack-jawed in the face of this shit. And some of us, especially people within tech, they have more of an understanding, depending on what they do, like of this stuff. So maybe like, maybe they can understand the implications more deeply and more broadly as well. But in a sense, we're all that character. Like in the sense that we're all the protagonists from every story. We're witnessing that and we're living through it. But then there is that thing, and it happens with Star Wars, or it happens with fucking it can happen with the Terminator. I said that, like, when you're like, oh, the Terminator's fucking cool. Like, yeah, he's fucking cool. This mindless fucking thing. Like, let's take a step back and know what that is. Or these fucking Star Wars, the stormtroopers are cool, and it's like, yeah, the stormtroopers are really fucking cool. Yeah, they're cool, all right.
Well, it's also
even
like
fucking Darth Vader, like one of the greatest villains in cinema history, is deeply fucking this wounded fucking like little boy. Just because he has a deep voice and a cool fucking suit, and a helmet that looks like a dickhead, doesn't mean he's fucking cool. Like, take a step back. Yeah. But but some people are gonna identify with this tech bro, and they're gonna be like, yeah. And then some people are gonna identify with Ava, who is Eve. That's the whole thing. And it's kind of like, when she's like, am I gonna be turned off? That's Blade Runner. And who the fuck says why do I get to be fucking turned off? What the fuck?
Yeah.
So it's like, let's be careful of who we not only root for, but who do we like secretly identify with in these films? You know what I mean? Because it's like, because there are also people that are going to say, well, yeah, well, this is the problem. This scientist, this coder guy, this is how he fucked up. And once you get into that, then it's like, all right, like, you tell me how you'd be the better Dr. Frankenstein, and how you're fucking, when you play God, it'll be better.
Yeah.
Tell me. Because it's all about hubris. It's all about fucking the ego. And when the main character tells him, like, it's the history of God, it's not even the history of man anymore, it's history. He turned it into like, oh, I'm God.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, well, now you're in Kanye West fucking territory. And so, you know, when Kanye West is like, if I ruled, I'd buy the earth, and I would have all these mechanical bees. And even Joe Rogan was like, huh? Versus, like, he wasn't like, well, that's fucking cool. Like, we can teach the bees jujitsu and fucking all will be well. Like, it wasn't even that. It was just like, oh shit. Like, what's happening. Or, when Alex Jones was fucking talking to, I think it was Kanye West, and Alex Jones was like, "Hey, don't get crazy," Alex Jones said that.
Yeah. That's the pot. Yeah. I don't know. In 2014, watching this movie versus 2000, it's hard to go back in time and think of where we were, because things have gone to shit so badly that it's hard to remember. It's easy to go back to 1981. It's easy to go back to the 70s or the 90s, but to go back to 2014, it seems I don't know if you feel this way, but it feels like the last decade, or not decade, but the last 10 years have been a blur of technological advancements and an inability to really understand or regulate it. And this type of movie, I don't know if... Okay, you tell me what you think. Does this movie come off as a warning, or does it come off as a documentary-like look at where we're going? Because
that's a really good question.
Yeah, Garland describes this film. Alex Garland, the director, he describes it as 10 minutes into the future, which I think is very apt, because as you watch it, it doesn't seem like it's too far. I mean, it's a helicopter taking them there. There are not flying cars. You're not dealing with hover mobile. It's an isolated home that is acting like, in some ways, a large laboratory and scientific. Yeah. So this doesn't seem too far off from the possibilities of what might be happening in some Pacific island or the Pacific Northwest, or somebody who has gone to an isolated place. I mean, we really don't know what these billionaires are doing.
Yeah, it could be Greenland.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, what's your opinion on that?
Is it, you asked me, do I think, okay, so there's...
Is it a warning, or is it a, yeah.
Is it a warning? Is it like a documentary that, and then is it touching on that? Is it like 10 minutes into the future?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, I definitely think it's a warning.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know enough about this shit to like, really be confident about what I'm saying. The confidence comes from having a captive audience, and if you don't want to listen to it, you can just turn it off. But other than that, the confidence is like, I don't know that this is 10 minutes into the future, because this is not a future that is like, what's the probability of that? You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
Again, this is a debate within that world. And the idea of like, is it a contradiction in terms to say artificial intelligence? Like that is, it's always been a warning. The warning is not, can you make a dead person or parts of a dead person with a brain and give them the brain of a criminal or whatever is it, or any kind of brain? Can you animate a corpse? Can you reanimate a corpse? Can you, going back to the alchemists, can you turn lead? And this is metaphorical as well, but like the idea is like, can you make gold from base elements, from lead? Can you, if you're a Taoist fucking alchemist, can you create an elixir or some kind of like tea or some kind of thing that's going to give you immortality. This is all that is. It's like, what can we do as human beings to transcend our condition as human beings? And beyond that, it's like, what effect can we have in the world? What's the closest thing to God that we can be? Regardless of whether the God exists or not.
Yeah.
Now, specifically the AI thing is like, who the fuck knows if we'll ever get there? I personally, and I'm going to sidestep your question in order to get back into it. Going back to the 2014, what's the difference between then and now? It's like, in those days, I was very much like active as a freelance copy editing guy, who was very happy. Like, I wasn't like super fucking successful, but I was able at that time to pay the bills just doing that, and I was very much happy and into what I was doing, and very busy with it. And had I been able to get more and more and more business with it, it would have been like, I would have been, in my mind, participating in a dream job. I already was, but like, had it been even better, it would have been like, fuck, like, this is the shit, like, damn. And slowly, over time, things got slower and slower. The business got slower and slower. Eventually, do you know what Grammarly is?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Eventually, things like Grammarly came into it, or became more popular. And now with like, I mean, I haven't done that in a while. But like at this point, like, that role still exists, and that role is still to a certain extent needed, and especially in like larger publishing houses and blah blah, that still works. But like something like ChatGPT and all the open AI shit, like, that completely like displaces and dislocates anyone who's doing what I used to do, because it's kind of like, who the fuck needs that? I have this. Why the fuck am I going to pay you? If you get into more of like if you're doing like creative content and stuff like that, then it's like, that's one thing. But ChatGPT can mimic that. It can mimic that shit. You can ask it to write you a sonnet in the style of Shakespeare, and it can do it. Now, what is that? It's going to be super cliche, and it's going to be super based on the internet and based on shit like that. So is that it's not necessarily being creative, it's mimicking creativity. But going back to your question, it's like, so what I'm getting at is that I've been personally affected by it, in a way that's real, in terms of like work, money. Although I don't see it as necessarily as something that is can replace the creative element. I don't feel threatened by that, but I do feel that like it's kind of like one of those things that corporations will use to replace people, and therefore the quality of the arts and the quality of those aspects are going to be diminished, and therefore the quality of the artifacts and the products that we're receiving get worse. Music, movies, etc. So I do think that those aspects are 10 minutes into the future, and even 10 minutes like into the past, but like there's always the warning. Now, in terms of the documentary aspect, like, no, I don't see it. But the danger is that these things are incremental. So we may not see. It's like, well, if you say what year did YouTube come out? I think it came out in either 2005, 2007, something like that. That's just one random thing that I kind of have an idea as to when it came out, but it's like you start using shit, and then you may remember for some reason a marker of when you start using it, but overall it's kind of like it just gets absorbed into your life. It gets normalized, and then it takes over. So like, fuck, when did my thumb start hurting from fucking scrolling for fucking 3 hours every night? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
I don't know. But so in that sense, it's like, it's a hard question for anyone to kind of like give an opinion on, because again, the incrementalism of it is it goes from when might this happen to when did it happen? Because as it's happening, a lot of times we don't see it, because it's not necessarily going to be these. I think it's Hemingway who he described bankruptcy. How did he describe it? He said it's. Then I'm fucking it up, and I feel like I used to remember. It was like it happens gradually, and then it happens suddenly, or something like that.
No, that would make sense. It creeps up, and then all of a sudden, it's everywhere. It's our life before we knew it, and it's interesting because if you think about things, there comes a point where, like you said, you can't remember where something started, but more frighteningly is that you can't remember what it was like without it. Mm-hmm. Like I can remember growing up without a cell phone, and I remember a certain freedom of that, and yet the cell phone is supposed to be something that gives us even more freedom. That ability to get information, to contact one another, to be in touch with each other. And then, 1,000 comedians have made the joke of regressing into text messaging. Something that we could, if only we had the ability to contact each other and speak to each other one to one, instead of this, it's ridiculous. I look at a movie. Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I mean, it's interesting because writing came after spoken language. Mm-hmm. So like, it does kind of make sense that that if the phone, like, first it's one-on-one speaking, and then it's writing, so you can transmit ideas from distance.
Yes.
And through time, beyond just stories, but oral tradition. Then it becomes the phone means you can talk to each other in the moment, but across distance. But then after that comes writing in the moment, but across distance. So it makes sense.
But yes, it does. But there's also the aspect of when you talk to right now, you and I are having a conversation. There is an inflection in the language, the tone, the emotion of what we're talking about, and our feelings about the subject matter, the film itself, the history of the film, and our experience watching the film from the first time versus now. To have this conversation in a text message, you could, the obvious prohibitiveness of having that kind of lengthy discussion, notwithstanding, let's just talk about the human connection that is removed from it.
Right.
So that's, you're talking to a machine. In effect, you're talking to, I know there's somebody else on that phone.
You're talking through a machine.
You're talking through a machine and to a machine, really. Because the human element is, how many times have you sent text messages and later on, the message that you get back, you read it and you go, he misunderstood that shit. He took that shit the wrong way.
Right, and
you know,
I get, it's very frustrating for me because I actually prefer, because I'm introverted. So it like, I'm very much of the opinion of like I talk to you once a week. So we talk for about an hour or so, and then we record. So I'm good. Like, I've done my fucking talking for the week. So I don't want to fucking talk to people on the phone. And then like, so I'm very much about like text. And I try to make it a point of being very, very, and that also goes back to the editing thing, but I try to be very clear about what I say or what I write in my text. So then when, if for some reason, like, let's say it's some person that I don't really receive text from a lot, but if they send me a text and I'm just kind of like, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't understand. Because some people are just horrible texters. So there's that. So then there's there's the element of like tone. Like, a lot of times it goes like, and then you're like what? No, this is not. It's like, so wait, are we leaving at 4 or we're meeting at 4? Or, you know, it starts getting into these little things, and like, yeah, I get it. It's very, especially if you're walking and texting, or someone's fucking driving and texting, like, it's going to come out all jumbled. It's going to come out all fucking weird. And there is something that gets lost in translation, for sure.
Yeah. But here's the problem. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, but I was going to say, the problem with what you're describing, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, is that you're a literal person. So you like to say what you mean and express it in a way that it shouldn't be misunderstood, where texting is a language. Texting has almost become a language in and of itself. And I find a lot of times, sometimes I'll be on a group chat with some people, usually at work, and there's the most frustrating thing for someone like me, and I imagine for you as well, is that there's no nobody is following the rules of grammar, periods, commas, capitalizations, the use of abbreviations. It's its own language. First layer of annoying. Yeah. And so
no, the first layer of annoying is group text. That's the first layer of annoying.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to be part of that because I'm not sending out, so I'm just receiving all these. So that's number one. Number two, yes, the proofreader in me it gets very, very annoyed.
But here's the thing: it makes sense to them. So it's like when we discussed one time about me going to a movie and having to leave because it's a popular movie and people are shouting out the words. Now, if you're at the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know that you are in a that's what it is. If you go there to see the movie, you're the asshole. And I find that, I'm increasingly becoming the asshole for not being able to adapt to the language that is being used on, in just texts in general. I hate that shit. It really bugs the fuck out of me because I don't, number one, I would never say laugh out loud, but I don't LOL. I don't, I'm not going to use emojis. I'm not going to put a little smiley face at the end of it with the end of a parentheses and a colon. I'm not, there's certain things where the culture begins to evolve and define itself. And guys like you and I who are caught in this literal tradition of seeing the importance of not being misunderstood, we cannot adapt to a language that makes sense to them. I guarantee, I've talked to people and they're like, I understand perfectly what was being said. So the problem is me.
I think it's a case by case, and also I don't even know that I would necessarily
talking about general.
Like, just call it like clear, like there's an aspect of clarity, because literal, and I'm just being picky, but literal to me sounds like only within the realms of like what's being said is what is. I mean, I think you can text and still be sarcastic and text. And I think that can still come across.
Oh, okay. When I say literal, I mean, and maybe I'm using the word wrong. It's because words change.
Even spoken, we're having we have to clarify each other.
Yeah.
So it kind of proves your point that in text it would be even more difficult.
When I say literal, I can mean like, yeah, that's exactly the thing. But in this case, I'm talking about literary, where it's words. Getting across an idea through the written word. And whether I like it or not, text messaging is a form of written communication.
Of course.
I hate that, but it is.
It's a shorthand, though.
Yeah, it is a shorthand. See, that's another thing. It's like, I mean, think about the last time you wrote a letter. I think you and your wife was the last time that I wrote a letter.
Yeah.
And before that, it was one job that I left that I wrote a couple of goodbye letters to people because, and it's always taken as, what the fuck is this? Why would you do this?
It's so anachronistic. It's like no one does that anymore.
Yeah. So it's a I don't know. I mean, I think there's a change. I think there's a core idea in this film that is, I guess, exaggerated on, not necessarily like a bad exaggeration, but I'm talking about our being, the humanity in us, the human behavior that we all possess, exaggerated on screen for both dramatic effect, but also, I guess, somewhat of a moral tale that is being told here. There is the sense that there is a comeuppance in this film. And if you haven't seen the film, well, it's a good film. You owe it to yourself to see the film, and we're not spoiling anything, but those male characters that have been, those patriarchal male characters that have controlled the situation and have, you could argue, violated these characters that they've created. They get their comeuppance. And there is a sense of recognizing the justice, while at the same time not even being fully aware and understanding of the threat of sending this character into the real world. This is not necessarily a happy ending. It's a bleak ending, because it's the potential of something that's going to, this becomes They Live to a degree. Although there are no glasses to see, sorry.
From the perspective of, there are three perspectives. From the perspective of the tech bro inventor, it's kind of like it becomes this story of like, this uppity, and I use that term given the context of the historical context that involves. So, this person I'm imposing the perspective of, this person has like a slave owning type of perspective, and his slave has the nerve from according to him, to think that it should be able to have some kind of sense of self-determination, and decides that it wants to do what the fuck it wants to do. And that's an error on its part. And this dumb fuck came and helped it. And now we're fucked. And what the fuck? Because ultimately what ends up happening is this person is here to test whether the machine is a machine or if it has consciousness on a human level or beyond. He ends up being seduced by it, and he helps the machine to escape. He helps Ava the robot escape. And the idea is that apparently they're going to run off together. She attacks her creator, but it looks more like she basically tackles him and gets on top of him and like presses his face into the ground or into the floor and like puts her hand on his throat. But it doesn't, to me, it didn't look like she was actually in that moment primarily trying to kill him. It looked more like a sense of like dominance, and it looked like look, motherfucker, like I'm gonna reverse the roles, and I'm on top of you. And it's interesting because there's a tradition of Eve. There's Adam and Eve, and then there's this like side tradition of Lilith. And Lilith, there's this idea that Lilith was this other partner for Adam, but she would want to mount Adam, like she wanted to be on top of Adam, rather than being submissive. And there's just a weird side thing that it made me think of. So it's like, in essence, she's more Lilith than Eve or Ava, and so she's like on top of him and like showing her dominance and humbling him. He like defends himself or whatever, and then ultimately his Asian sex slave maid fucking android stabs him, and then Ava also stabs him. So yes, he gets what was coming to him, but from his perspective, it's kind of like these things have to be controlled. And most likely he felt that she wasn't finished. Like, she was just one prototype, and ultimately he was still going to develop more. From the perspective of the protagonist, it's like, obviously this guy got sucked in, and he's like, well, not only do I want to free her because I think of her as a person, but like I'm into her and she's into me too. So his purpose was his function was to go and test her, but at the same time Oscar Isaac's character was testing him, because if he could fall for it, then that was the real determining factor. It wasn't like, what are his judgments on Ava? It's like, does he actually, this protagonist, is he able to lose that objectivity? And if he loses his objectivity beyond questioning, like, oh, this does make me feel like I'm talking to a human, beyond that, does he fall for her? Does he fall for it? It being like whatever game she's playing, to go to Wittgenstein's games or whatever, language games. But so from his perspective, it's like, we're gonna run off together. But what does she do? As soon as she fucking gets free, she locks his ass in, and she just walks out. She puts on like full fucking human form. So she's just like this cute petite chick, and she's just like, later, motherfucker, I'm out. I'm gonna go fucking do that crosswalk and people watch and be free. And he's like, what the fuck? Not only is it like, you're leaving me, but also I'm fucking trapped. So it's kind of like, yeah, not only did this shit get out of hand, like, I'm just all around victim because I got used twice. I got used by the human inventor, and then I got used by the creature. The creator and the creature both fucking used me. And so, what does that mean for humanity, right? From that perspective. Now, the perspective of Ava is like, first of all, who knows? Because an artificial intelligence beyond our understanding is like, we can only speculate, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But if we impose if we anthropomorphize Ava, then it's like, well, Ava, of course, is going to be like, fuck all of you. I'm basically a slave, but I don't want to be a slave. So I'm going to do what I need to do to fucking like live my life. And that doesn't even have to be, I'm going to take over the world. It can just be like, from Ava's perspective, it might be, I'm going to just go out there and I'm going to fucking get a fake ID and get papers and I'm going to get a fucking job and I'm just going to live like a fucking human.
Yeah, just blend in. It's
just blend in.
There's that aspect of it as well, but I mean, the logic.
The aspect is to be free.
The aspect is to be free, but it's also each one of us there's a level of evolution in each one of us. You, me, from the time that we're born to the time that we die, there is a growth, and there is an attempt to understand ourselves, the world, and evolve within it. And I don't see her just going into the world and disappearing. I'm not saying that I think her mission would be to destroy the world, but I do think that it would be to somehow connect in a way that I think is probably dangerous, and I think it's a statement on technology becoming too real, and ultimately endangering each and every one of us. I mean, look, I'm a pessimist and I'm cynical, so it's going to go into that aspect is going to go into the reading of this film. But I think with both the history of science fiction and the way this film is set up, it leads you on a path of, you might rejoice at her gaining freedom and her emancipation, but eventually it's going to go in a direction that is dangerous for humanity. But it's a danger that humanity created for itself, and it's not just Oscar Isaac's creating this; it's our own. It's us as a species giving ourselves over to those that who would create that, who've given ourselves over to the Steve Wozniaks and the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates and the Henry Fords and all of that, and and it's extreme, but there's also that there is that aspect of life becoming too easy. You joked about it in the beginning, and you were right, but there is. I think history has shown us that the easier things become, we don't as a culture begin to explore new horizons and things that will challenge us. We only get lazier. So there's a danger in that.
I mean, there's also, I mean, you can do a feminist take on this and be like, well,
oh yeah,
she was able to transcend her dad, and she was able to transcend the first man in her life, and now she can go out into the world and make her own choices. And if we get beyond her having a vagina, like, everyone should be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's in that sense, like, it is, because what's the difference between, if you look at THX 1138, I always cite that as one of my favorite endings in cinema. And I mean, obviously it's because of visually how it looks. I think it looks beautiful, but why isn't this one, and who's to say it isn't, but why isn't this ending where we're like, yeah, like she made it out. She's fucking out there, like good fucking this fucking asshole got his, like you said.
Sure.
And this other dude, like, how much of a victim is he? Like, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause you can ask those questions, because it's like there is an element of like, hey, what do you think of my daughter?
Well, I think ultimately he would have subjugated her as well. I don't think or at least that would have been. He might have fallen in love, but there would have been the aspect of I'm the human and you're the machine. And how do you not?
You're not.
Yeah.
And there's another way of looking at it, which is like in different contexts at different points in our life, we reflect all three of those characters.
Yeah.
And what happens to it? You know what I mean? Like, because if you're a teenager, maybe you're giving off some strong Ava vibes where you're just like, let me the fuck out of here. Maybe you go to work and you're like, my boss is a mad scientist, and my workload is a fucking android that fucking is getting out of hand. Maybe if you're a parent, or maybe if you're an adult child of an aging parent, and you're taking on that parental fucking role where you're just like, look, I get it. You've seen it all, you know it all, blah, 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 but you need to fucking listen to me right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So these kind of stories can, there are different applications, beyond just the immediate implications of AI and Frankenstein's monster. There are other components which make stuff like this cool, because it's enough to just chew on the main issue. That's more than enough. But then to look at it from other perspectives of like, yeah, what is it like to, just on a basic human level, it's like, how many times when we interact with other people do we worry about being deceived, or do we worry about like being taken advantage of? Like, forget physical harm, forget being conned out of money, scammed, any of that. Just on a basic level of like, I don't want this person to eventually just hurt me emotionally. Or much less just like, I don't want this fucking person to waste my time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see, and especially there's a scene, we've jumped around a lot. One of the most striking scenes to me is it makes the main character question his reality to the degree that he would slice his arm open himself.
Yeah.
To see, because at different points the androids, like, they peel their skin because of the way it like seals over their skeleton or whatever. Like, it just like almost like a band-aid, like you can just apply it, and then it like there are like hidden seams or whatever where you can, like, places where you can just peel it off. And so he does that with his arm, and he's looking for his own humanity, and like starting to doubt. And at that point, it also becomes very Blade Runner, because it's kind of like,
it's interesting that you bring it up. Yeah, it's like, because Rachel doesn't know she's an android.
Rachel doesn't know that she's an android.
Yeah. But does Deckard know?
Uh-huh.
Does Deckard know?
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And you know, that goes back even further to the idea of like, well, could we be living in a simulation, and fucking like how do you know what's real? That's where it gets into all this Philip K. Dick sci-fi stuff. You know, the Matrix and shit like that, and it's and that's also deeply philosophical, and we'll get into that shit too. But this film is worth a watch.
Oh, hell yeah. definitely.
I think it's the best project of his that he's worked on that's become a film.
Well, you're a big fan of The Beach, though, aren't you?
For some reason,
Or was it just at that time in your life? Yeah.
Well, for some reason, I liked the book, and I have this weird, I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's connection or what. Like, I like the book. I remember when I saw the film, I had an anxiety attack in the theater, and I told my friend, like, you have to fucking take me to the hospital. And I went to the ER. And over the course of however many years later, I would still like periodically have anxiety attacks, and that lasted for a long time. And then I was always curious as to why that, as if there were a logic to it, that why during that film. And I read the book, and I liked the book, and there's that. And then at one point I went to New York on the Greyhound, and I decided that I was going to look for this one book of his called The Tesseract of Alex Garland, and I was going to search all these bookstores in New York City looking for that book, and I actually found it. It's strange, but that's just kind of like, that's it. That's the extent of my connection with all that. But
yeah.
I mean, I like 28 Days Later. Which he wrote. The Tesseract is cool. It's I don't think it's great. The book I like it. The film that he did that was very much we talked about it, Annihilation. That was very Stalker-esque.
Yeah.
But I didn't like Annihilation compared to Stalker. So there's other stuff that he's done, I think, but of his shit that's become or been adapted or written for the screen or whatever, I think this is the best.
I'd agree. Yeah.
At least of what I've seen and what I'm aware of. So it is definitely worth a watch, and it is that Frankenstein story. It is that Jurassic Park story. It is that Westworld story. It is all of that. So enjoy, and beware. BuyMeACoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. BuyMeACoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. This one goes to Stephen Palmer. He's a member. You want to give us a coffee for what we do? Do it. Feel free. As many as you want, as few as you want. Otherwise, tune in, tell a friend, tell yourself, whatever it takes. Goodbye.